You don't have depression. You have a life you hate. Stop. Stop whatever you're doing right now. Stop scrolling. Stop pretending you're busy. Stop running from what you already know but won't admit. Because I'm about to tell you something that every pharmaceutical company, every corporation, every system that profits from your misery desperately hopes you never figure out. You're not broken. You're not defective. You're not malfunctioning. You're just finally waking up. Right now, at this exact moment, 280 million people on this planet carry a diagnosis of depression. 280 million. That's not a number. That's a pandemic. That's an epidemic of consciousness that nobody wants to call by its real name. And every year, that number climbs higher, higher, always higher. The antidepressant market is worth over $16 billion. Therapy apps are multiplying like viruses. Self-help books pile up on nightstands like funeral flowers. And everyone, politicians, doctors, influencers, your concerned aunt on Facebook, everyone keeps asking, why is everyone so depressed? But here's the question nobody dares to ask. What if depression isn't the disease? What if it's the diagnosis? What if the system isn't trying to cure you? What if it's trying to sedate you? Think about it. Really think. When did sadness become a disorder? When did dissatisfaction become a chemical imbalance? When did hating your life turn into a medical condition? I'll tell you when. When your misery became profitable, when your pain became a product, when they figured out they could sell you the solution to a problem they created. Because here's the truth they're hiding. Depression is the most brilliant control mechanism ever invented. It's genius, really. Instead of saying this system is crushing you, they say your brain is malfunctioning. Instead of admitting we've built a world that destroys the human spirit, they whisper, you need medication. Instead of acknowledging your life is meaningless and you know it, they prescribe 12 weeks of cognitive behavioral therapy. See how perfect it is? Your suffering becomes your fault. Your despair becomes your defect. Your awareness becomes your illness. The cage isn't the problem. You are. The bars aren't real. Your perception is broken. The lock isn't there. You're just too sick to see that you're free. Except you're not free, and you know it. Deep down, underneath all the coping mechanisms and positive affirmations and gratitude journals, you know it. You wake up, and that's already a defeat. The alarm screams. Your body refuses. Every cell in your being says no, but you say yes because what choice do you have? Bills don't care about your exhaustion. Rent doesn't respect your despair. Survival doesn't take days off. So you drag yourself up. You perform the morning ritual. Shower, coffee, clothes that feel like a costume for a play you never auditioned for. You step into the machine. The commute. That beautiful daily reminder that your time isn't yours. 40 minutes, an hour, 2 hours sitting in traffic or standing in crowded trains surrounded by other hollow-eyed souls. All of you pretending this is normal. This is fine. This is just life. Then the job. Oh, the job. 8 hours? 10 hours. 12 if you want to seem dedicated. Doing work that doesn't matter for people who don't care. Building wealth for someone else's yacht. Making someone else's dream come true while yours suffocate in the back of your mind like houseplants you forgot to water. You sit under fluorescent lights that your DNA doesn't recognize. You stare at screens that burn your eyes and fry your nervous system. You follow rules that make no sense. You smile at people you don't like. You pretend to care about metrics and quarterly reports and initiatives and synergy and all the corporate poetry they use to dress up this simple truth. You're selling your life by the hour, and it's not nearly enough. But you keep going. Because what else can you do? You need healthcare. You need housing. You need food. You need internet so you can check your email at 11 p.m. when your boss decides something is urgent that absolutely could have waited until Monday. So you endure. You survive. You tell yourself it's temporary, even though you've been saying that for 5 years. You tell yourself it'll get better, even though nothing suggests it will. You tell yourself everyone else manages, so why can't you? And that's the moment. Right there. That's when the diagnosis becomes convenient. Because if everyone else manages and you can't, then something must be wrong with you. Not the system, not society, not the inhuman conditions we've all agreed to call normal. No, it's your brain, your chemistry, your wiring. You're depressed. And just like that, they've got you. Because now you're the problem. Now you need fixing. Now you need pills and therapy and coping strategies and resilience training. Now you need to adapt to circumstances that no human should have to adapt to. Nobody asks if the circumstances should change. Nobody questions if maybe, just maybe, humans aren't supposed to live like this. Nobody wonders if your despair is actually clarity. No, you just need better medication, a better therapist, better coping mechanisms, better mindfulness, better gratitude practice, better acceptance of your cage. But here's what they don't tell you. Here's what the doctors and the pharmaceutical companies and the corporate wellness programs and the self-help gurus deliberately ignore. Your ancestors didn't live like this. For millions, humans lived differently. We moved our bodies every day, not on a treadmill going nowhere, but with purpose. Hunting, gathering, building, dancing. We saw the sun rise and set. We knew the names of stars. We lived in communities where everyone mattered, where everyone had a role, where isolation was rare and connection was default. We had autonomy, real autonomy, not the fake choice between employer A and employer B, not the illusion of freedom that comes from choosing which streaming service gets your money. Actual control over our lives, our time, our energy. We had meaning that made sense. Feed the family, protect the tribe, pass down knowledge, create beauty, tell stories, raise children. These weren't just jobs. They were purposes woven into survival, into community, into existence itself. We were made for that world. We were not made for this one. You were not designed to sit motionless for 8 hours staring at spreadsheets. Your body doesn't understand why you never run, never climb, never use your strength for anything real. Your nervous system can't comprehend why you're always stressed but never in actual danger. Always alert but never released. Your brain wasn't built to process 10,000 pieces of information before breakfast, to maintain 500 friendships with people you've never touched, to compete with billions of strangers for scraps of validation, to see everyone's highlight reel while drowning in your own blooper reel. Your spirit wasn't meant to spend the best hours of the best years of your one singular life making someone else obscenely wealthy while you stay perpetually broke, perpetually tired, perpetually one emergency away from total collapse. This isn't what you were made for. And your depression, your exhaustion, your emptiness, your lack of motivation, your inability to feel joy, your constant sense that something is fundamentally wrong, that's not a malfunction. That's your system working exactly as it should. That's your psyche screaming, "This isn't right," This is killing us. We need to stop. But instead of listening, instead of honoring that message, instead of acknowledging that you're having a completely rational response to completely irrational circumstances, you take the pill. You learn to cope. You practice acceptance. You adjust. You break yourself down until you fit into a system that was never designed for human flourishing. And they call this healing.
Let me tell you what happens next. You accept the diagnosis. You become someone with depression. It's official now. It's medical. It comes with prescriptions and appointments and treatment plans. And something subtle shifts. Your suffering is no longer evidence that something is wrong with your circumstances. It's evidence that something is wrong with you. The problem has been internalized, personalized, medicalized. You stop questioning your job, your debt, your exhaustion, your meaningless routine. Instead, you question your brain chemistry. You stop asking, why is life like this? And start asking, why can't I handle life? See the trick? See how elegant it is? The system that's crushing you has convinced you that you're the thing that's broken. The society that demands you sacrifice your health, your time, your relationships, your dreams, your very aliveness on the altar of productivity has persuaded you that your resistance to this sacrifice is a disease. They've turned your sanity into a symptom. You feel empty? That's anhedonia. You can't get out of bed? That's fatigue. You don't see the point? That's hopelessness. You can't focus on meaningless tasks? That's executive dysfunction. Never mind that these are completely logical responses to a life drained of purpose, connection, autonomy, and joy. Never mind that feeling empty when your life is empty makes perfect sense. Never mind that not seeing the point is actually evidence that you're paying attention. No, you're just sick. Here's a pill, here's a worksheet, here's a breathing exercise. And the most insidious part, the pills might actually work. Not because they're fixing what's broken, but because they're numbing what's aware. Because here's the thing about antidepressants that nobody wants to say out loud. They don't make you happy. They make you compliant. They don't fill the emptiness. They make you stop noticing the emptiness. They don't give your life meaning. They make you stop caring that it's meaningless. They turn the volume down on your soul screaming until it's just white noise you can ignore while you go back to your cubicle, back to your debt, back to your slow motion suicide that everyone calls being responsible. You become functional. That's the word they use. The medication is working. You're more functional now. Functional, like a machine, like a tool, like a thing that serves its purpose without complaint. And maybe that's fine. Maybe you're so tired that numbness sounds like peace. Maybe you're so worn down that compliance sounds like recovery. Maybe you fought so long that surrender sounds like wisdom. Maybe you'll take the pills and keep the job and maintain the routine and make it to retirement and tell yourself you did okay, you survived, you were realistic, you were mature, you accepted reality. But here's what I need you to understand, what I need you to hear underneath all the noise. You get one life. One singular life. Not a rehearsal, not a practice round, not a rough draft you'll revise later. This is it. These years, these days, these hours, this is your actual existence. And right now, if you're honest, really brutally honest, you're not living it. You're enduring it. You're surviving it. You're getting through it. But you're not living it. How many mornings have you woken up and felt genuine excitement about your day? How many evenings have you fallen to sleep feeling satisfied, fulfilled, like you spent your time on something that mattered? How much of your life do you actually want to be living versus how much are you just tolerating because you don't see an alternative? When was the last time you felt alive? Really alive? Not drunk alive or vacation alive or weekend alive, not the temporary escapes you need to cope with the prison, but actually, genuinely, deeply alive in your regular existence. For most people, the answer is devastating because most people are living lives they hate, pretending they're fine, waiting for someday. Someday when I get promoted, someday when I pay off the loans, someday when the kids are grown, someday when I retire, someday when I finally have permission to live. But someday never comes. There's always another goal, another obligation, another reason to wait. And then one day, you're 50, 60, 70, and you realize you spent your entire existence preparing to live instead of actually living. You traded your life for a living. And they're not the same thing. They're not even close. So here's the uncomfortable question, the one that's been hiding underneath your depression, underneath your exhaustion, underneath your numbness. What if you stopped accepting this? What if you stopped trying to fix yourself and started questioning what broke you? What if you stopped trying to adapt to a sick system and started getting healthy by rejecting it? What if your depression isn't the problem to solve, it's the wake-up call you've been ignoring? I'm not talking about toxic positivity. I'm not selling you some fantasy where you quit your job and live on a beach and everything is perfect. I'm not that naive, and neither are you. But what if there's a middle path between total surrender and total fantasy? What if you could start making different choices? Small ones at first, then bigger ones. What if you could start reclaiming pieces of your life, your time, your autonomy? What if you stopped spending money you don't have on things you don't need to impress people you don't like? What if you downsized, simplified, reduced your expenses so you needed less money and could work less? What if you stopped chasing a career that's killing you and found work that's just work, something that pays the bills without consuming your soul? What if you valued your time more than your title? What if you rebuilt community, real community, not social media performance? People you see face to face, people you help and who help you, people who know your name and your story. What if you moved your body not for fitness goals, but because it feels good? What if you created something not for profit, but for joy? What if you spent time outside not for optimization, but because you're an animal that needs sunlight? What if you started saying no? No to overtime, no to toxic people, no to obligations that drain you, no to the guilt they weaponize to control you? What if you gave yourself permission to want more than survival, to want joy, meaning, connection, purpose, freedom, not someday, but now, in whatever small ways you can claim them? This isn't easy. I won't lie to you. The system punishes people who opt out. Society judges people who refuse to play along. You'll face resistance, external and internal. But here's what I know. That weight in your chest, that exhaustion in your bones, that emptiness in your soul, that doesn't get better by accepting the life that's causing it. It gets better by changing that life. You don't need to fix your brain. You need to fix your circumstances. You don't need to accept the unacceptable. You need to reject it. Your depression isn't the disease. Your depression is your body, your mind, your spirit screaming at you that something is wrong. It's information, it's data, it's a message. And the message is simple. This isn't working. This isn't living. This isn't what you're here for. You have one life, one singular life. And you're spending it in a prison you've been taught to call normal. So maybe, just maybe, you don't have depression. Maybe you have a life you hate. And maybe it's time to do something about that. The pills will always be there if you need them. The therapy will always be available. The coping mechanisms aren't going anywhere. But your life, your time, your one singular chance to exist on this planet, that's disappearing. Right now, second by second, day by day. The question isn't whether you're depressed. The question is, what are you going to do about the life that's making you this way? Because you can keep medicating the message, you can keep adjusting to the cage, you can keep telling yourself it's fine, it's normal, everyone else manages, so you should too. Or you can listen, you can wake up, you can start fighting, not against yourself, but for yourself. Your depression is trying to tell you something. Maybe it's time to listen.